Hey guys, it's Jody with the Whiskey Rebellion Barcast. A little special thing going on tonight. I'm just going to do a one-on-one with Mr. Mike Root. He is the owner of Copper Sky. Plus, he's also an entrepreneur. Has a bunch of different ventures going on. And I thought, first of all, it's a huge honor to have you on the show. Please, thank you for being here. And let's start off with something simple. Tell me some of the cool stuff that's going on at Copper Sky right now.
Oh man. We're kind of in what I call finishing season. So earlier in the summer, we laid down some different whiskey blends that we put in different barrels, from Grand Marnier to Mezcal barrel, Madeira barrel, just some really cool experiments. And so those are starting to come up now. They're ready, they're mature. So we're pulling some really cool experiments. We had an apple brandy finish that we released. It's sold out. It is so good. I'm sure I got a sample here I can send you. But
you keep saying that. I have my mailbox is still empty.
You got to stay on top of me, because everyone's always like asking for stuff. As you can imagine.
You just keep talking. I'll send you my address while we
send it right now. I'll turn the phone on so we can hear it ding in the background, so I know it's recorded that I received it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as you can imagine, like, I'm always getting hit up for people want stuff, whether it's free whiskey or swag or whatever. And I'm really nice, so I love giving things to people. But at some point, I'm like, I'm a businessman. I can't just keep giving all my whiskey away. But yeah, we got some really cool finishes coming out. We're about to release a Grand Marnier finish that we did a low rye in. Mm-hmm. And then we did a double finish experiment where we then took the Grand Marnier, half of it, and finished it in a whiskey or a vanilla extract barrel.
Nice. So can I ask you a question about that? When they do the double finishes, is that similar to like a double oak finish?
Theoretically, yeah. So double oak is, it sat in one American oak and they put in another, usually a new American oak, because they're trying to get that oaky flavor. Finishing is the same thing. It went from one barrel into another barrel that usually had something really extreme in it. It's usually not bourbon. It was usually a wine, a brandy, or something, a tequila.
I was going to ask you about tequila. Have you seen a lot of the recent things where people are doing, first of all, what's your thoughts on finishing bourbon and tequila? Tequila barrel, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's different for sure. I think it needs to be watched very closely, because to me, if you let finishes go too long, it takes the whiskey characteristics out of the liquor, and then you're getting too much of whatever the finish was. So like for us, we really pride ourselves on being whiskey forward. Yeah. So like no matter what the finish is, it's still going to be that beautiful whiskey on the front, and then whatever kind of rolls on the side of the palates, whether it's Madeira or whatever. So the tequila thing, I've had one that was okay. I wouldn't go buy it on the shelf, and I didn't. The closest thing we have a mezcal finish.
Right.
And we've got a really unique. We did like a hyper blend. We took a high rye mash bill and a low rye mash bill, blended those together, and then dumped it in the mezcal. So it's going to be a little bit lighter. It won't be as like super smoky. But yeah, we're watching that one close, because again, it's really hard to save a finished whiskey. It's easy to save a bad single barrel. It's not easy. It's easier, because we can figure out how to blend it. We can proof it down. We can manipulate it where that taste still comes back. It's really hard to save an over finished whiskey, because then it's just, you're getting all the red wine. Like how do you mediate red wine? It's just it's in your face.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, and then the red wine has more of a wet taste to it too. So you would probably pick up some of that characteristics of that, and which seems to be counter conducive, I guess, to what bourbon does. Because bourbon, though wet, generally the most common notes that people pick up when they're tasting is like the oiliness. Now that may be a similarity, but you never hear someone say it's just really wet, Right. So that's interesting that, you have to watch how long you put it in there, which makes sense. I mean, you definitely want to keep the whiskey first of all, I would truly would trust whatever you guys do, because I'm not just telling you this, you already know this to be fact. But you guys' honey expression, by far the best one that's on the market. The only thing that comes close to it is actually King's bourbon honey expression. And I recently got that, and I will tell you that it's a 108 proof. I think that's right. It might be a 116, but it's either 108, 116, somewhere in there. But that's fantastic. What I love about it is, I wish I'd brought it downstairs. to the bar, but you can see the properties of the honey. Like if you were to shake it up and then hold it out in front of you in a light, it looks like you can see honey floating around in it. And so it has that. So it's really, really neat. But that would be a close second, but by far the best. And now I will preface this by saying I'm generally not a blends guy at all. I like, bourbon barrel strength. Toasted is probably about as far out of my wheelhouse I'll go, so typically. But now I like wheaters, of course. And that was what I found to be the most fascinating about the Copper Sky honey finish you guys did, because it wasn't a bourbon. Well, I guess it's still bourbon, but it wasn't your typical mash bill that you get from a Kentucky bourbon. It was, well, that's still not true either, because you have a lot of wheaters up there, but it was the first time I ever had a wheated, honey fish. That's what I should have said from the get-go.
And that's exactly why I chose to do that mash bill, was because when you see a lot of these honey or sweeter finishes, people are using rye or lower rye. I hadn't at the time seen a wheated finish, which since then there's been some that have come out and they're really good. But yeah, I really enjoy playing around with wheated mash bills. Like right now we have a 95% wheat whiskey that we're doing some really cool things with. And I think that's just, we were joking before the show, me being from the South, I think that's just my palate. I tend to like sweeter, softer things that kind of evolve, like the earthy notes. I don't like the sharp. I don't like red wines at all. So yeah, I'm more of a white wine if I'm going to have wine. Yeah. But and I think it's because I like the dryness of it typically, and it's just you get a nice sweet taste, but then it dries right out. And the only bad thing about wine is that's a hangover I don't like. Well, the tannins and that, that's the biggest difference. That's one of the biggest questions we get on tours too. Is like, how do we get hangovers and all these alcohols and in liquor, especially? It's because the heads and hearts weren't cut right. Like you're drinking a lot more of the methanols and the ethanols because that company wanted a bigger cut. Right. And so it's not the pure heart. So you're going to have a harder hangover. And see, that's probably the, hopefully you guys don't ever do this and I won't feel bad for saying this, but that's the reason why I'm so against the plastic bottle, whiskeys. When I see something in a plastic bottle, I immediately think wino. All right. Wino, or, your corner drunk, or college kids. That could be true, but both of us are academics. So, but when I was a college kid, if I was going to have bourbon, it was at least still going to be in a glass bottle. And I think I learned that from, I did have some alcoholics in my family. I seen that they would always had the plastic bottles. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be that guy. Yeah, I love my family, but I don't want to be that guy, Right. So it might have came from there, The other day we were actually talking about college experiences. Like what did we, like my staff and I, like what did we used to drink when we were in college? And I was telling them some of the things and they were like, man, you were bougie in college too. Cause like, I drank at college, get middle shelf whiskey and bourbon. And at the time I didn't mind vodka. Now I don't even like the smell of it, but like I never drank beer. I don't like bottom shelf stuff. Yeah, that's not entirely true on bottom shelf. I found some old Bardstown bonded on the bottom, and I'm gonna tell you what, that's fantastic. Yeah. All right. But the when I was in college, it was probably, let me put it differently. When I was in college for my undergrad, which then traversed into the military as well, because we both have parallel stories there. It was mostly I drink to get drunk, right? And there was probably some plastic bottle vodkas and probably that's probably the reason why I will not touch vodka now. And then there was many trips to Southern California across the border in Tijuana, having a lot of tequila. And then there was trips to Rosaritas and Sonatas and stuff, drinking lots of tequila and whatever type of formaldehyde beer they had. So for me though, like if high class Jody back in college, it was Guinness, it was like, if I'm having a good day, I got a C+ on that paper, it's a good day. It's a Guinness, like my parents are still going to send money, Guinness, so that was probably where I was. But that takes us to, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, how many years you spent in the military? Just under 10.
Just under 10. Yeah. And I spent, I retired from the military. And we obviously seen you could probably think back to your first months, years in the military and how you acted probably, and what you drank and who you hung out with. And like, for example, my remaining best friend living in the world, is a guy named Buddy Josky. He watches this show, so he'll appreciate the call out. We used to have, back in the 90s, because I'm a little older probably than you, we used to have these WW, when it was still called WWF, parties, where we had people over, and the way it worked was one of us would buy the booze and the other one would pay for the pay-per-view. All right. And so this went on every month because, that back then they used to do a pay-per-view every month, whether it was SummerSlam or whatever they're called, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, all of those. And of course it was at the height of Stone Cold and The Rock, the big names people. And when it was fun. All right. And it was still called the WWF. Yeah. So they wasn't sued by the World Wildlife Federation. By that point.
Oh yeah.
So, but anyway, so the very first time we had to get together, Buddy was like, hey, you know what I'll do? I'll pay for the pay-per-view. So it was like, who knows how much it cost back then? It was probably $30. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a number. Yeah. And so that's what he paid for it. And of course, me being more of a sophisticated drinker than him, and I can say this with confidence and evidence here in a moment, I decided I would go get some, what's it called? Alaskan Amber. I bought a case of Alaskan Amber. And that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Definitely for the military budget and stuff like that. We're talking $12+ per 6-pack. So we're talking about, I'm probably spending the same amount of money he is. I'm trying to work it out. So I bought a case and boom, at the exchange, no taxes. World is good. We're both happy. We're living it up. A month later comes around. So I'm paying for the pay-per-view. And he shows up and he brings a case of Keystone Light.
24-pack case.
Yeah. All right. So and I'm like I've seen this at the exchange. It's like $5 and something for a case. All right. Yeah. I'm like, dude, that's just wrong. He goes, no, man. I'll get my bottle. He goes, it's a specially lined can. It tastes like it's coming from a bottle. I'm like, no. Like that's and only $5 and something at the exchange.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any validity to the story. All right. So the next day, I'm supposed to fly. I think he was working in training at the time and wasn't flying the next day. Thank God my hop got canceled because I felt like hell. I remember coming home and he always broke into my house anyhow. And would make himself comfortable on either in the Easy Boy or watching TV or whatever. I mean, I'm just being serious. I ultimately just gave him a key because I was like, this is ridiculous. No reason to come through the window. You can just come right in through the front door. So I come home and I go to take a piss, and I swear to you, it smelled exactly the same coming out as it did coming in. I'm like, that is ridiculous, And so since that day, I've never had Keystone Light. And from that point on, I just decided, we're just going to do a community jar. Every time we have a show that we're going to do a pay-per-view, you pay half, I pay half. If we invite people over, they contribute. Yeah. But everybody BYOB, So
figured it out after that experience.
It only took one experience.
I've never had Keystone Light.
Yeah, well, you're not missing anything.
I'm not a big beer fan, and I'm definitely not drinking cheap beer.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm a Guinness guy mostly if I drink beer, but it's few and far between. I like this year alone. So we're in the 9th month of the year. I've had one Guinness in the year.
Yeah.
So that's how much beer I drink. I'm mostly a whiskey guy. Like I love to have a bourbon almost every day. So tell me, what kind of new experiences you got going on? Like what kind of entrepreneurship of Mike Root? What are you doing?
Well, 2 weeks ago, I launched company number 5. It's called Rickhouse Spirits Company. It's basically a spirits broker. Just like, there's a bunch of them out on the East Coast. We just don't have a lot out here that kind of really takes care of the Midwest distilleries. So we launched Rickhouse Spirits Company with a couple other business buddies just so we can, help some of the other smaller clients out here, especially in Colorado. And then, of course, as if I had enough free time, Friday, we're launching our podcast. So we're shooting episode 1. So I guess technically it'll launch next week, but we're recording episode 1 on this Friday of our podcast, which is called The Atypical Intellects, which is, the name is because it's, you already know I'm a Southern boy if you can't hear it. My co-host, he's a businessman, award-winning food truck and restaurant down in Castle Rock, Colorado.
Nice.
He's doing some big business things. So, and he's from Louisiana. So we both, Southern boys, thick Southern accents, especially
you guys
when we
talk
get around.
really slow and stuff.
No, we don't. We're like fast Southern talkers, but when we get around each other, our accents get thicker.
Oh, of course, of course.
These two schmucks don't know anything. And then you look at our pedigrees and it's like, good God, they own like 9 companies combined. As you know, I'm working on my PhD. He's got degrees. It's like, these two hillbillies, they know what they're doing. So it's kind of like, it's a very serious sounding name, the Atypical Intellects, but I really landed on that wordplay because like, we're not your standard looking or sounding entrepreneurs or, go-getters. So it should be a really fun podcast.
You brought up something and I do want to go back to that, but you brought up something about entrepreneurship. And I want to talk about that because as you know, I teach for a living. That's what I do. I'm a professor and I do hold a doctorate as well. And I teach business. So I've been bringing up a lot of like the current environmental constraints that are out there. And this market right now, it's rough. Definitely if you're producing something or need product to produce something, this, that, and whatever. All right. And then of course you have inflation and stuff like that. From a business perspective, from an entrepreneur's perspective, how does this market feel for you to launch new careers, new ventures, new opportunities?
It's definitely, I would say for a seasoned entrepreneur like myself, I see it as a fun challenge. And a lot of that came from the military that we had to endure. Like, everything is a fire. Everything's a priority in the military. And so to me, like these new entrepreneur ventures it's either an opportunity to employ other people, to use other people's resources. Cause you got to operate, your supply chain. I would say for a new entrepreneur, like if it was business number 1, launching, we thought 2020 was crazy. I've had this conversation with many people, we're feeling the effects of it now. Like my supply chain is tied up at the distillery.
Well, a lot of that has to do with off the coast of San Francisco right now.
Yeah, there's all there's a bunch of issues that we can point to for sure.
Yeah,
but so definitely
so boys and girls, if you hadn't heard it first, make sure you go out and buy your toilet paper. You're going to need it this year.
God, don't start that again. Good grief. We need to teach them how to live. We got to teach them how to live off I lived in Pakistan for a year. Toilet paper wasn't even a thing. We got to get these kids a little better. That's why you don't touch people with your left hand. Remember?
That's right. Yep. And it's just fortunate I'm left-handed, so it works out. I'm like, this is already comfortable.
It really confuses people. Yeah, I think the current economic climate is probably going to deter a lot of new businesses just because it's hard to get a loan. It's hard to start up things. Like banks are really weary if you don't have a lot of business
acumen. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's fun. I'm the weird person that thinks challenges are fun, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I'd say the interesting thing that I'm doing in building this, I'll just call it what it is because I'm trying this business empire. The businesses that I'm creating, they all are self-sustaining, but they help the other company. So for instance, Rickhouse Spirit Companies, while it can sustain itself with its own clients, there's parts in those contracts that we design that it takes care of Copper Sky as well.
Right.
So it funnels, whiskey to Copper Sky and keeps future business coming to Copper Sky, but it also makes its own money with its own clients. So, there's other people in the distillery world that they own their own glass companies. Of course, they're based, in China, but they don't have glass issues because they own the company that makes their glass, or they own the company that makes boxes. So like, there's people that are getting really creative, and it's like, okay, if I got to buy this from you and it's taking you 2 months, why don't I just start my own little mini supply chain? If you got the time and the resources, and
the know-how.
And I will tell you every day of the week, I don't have the know-how in most of these industries, so I surround myself with the people that do.
Right.
Even when it comes to distilling, I would never consider myself a master distiller. I know how to do it. I scientifically know how to make whiskey, and it's good. But
it's funny. You're the second person that said that. I think I told you about this, and if I didn't, it may be new to you today, but I'll tell you. We had one of our episodes, and I can't remember which episode it was, but we had a doctor of fermentation come on. Now, first of all,
it was a thing.
That's exactly what I said. Like,
wow.
How did I not know this was a thing? I feel like I completely wasted my doctorate. Like I successfully defended my dissertation. I came up with all this nonsense, but made it work. And now I'm an expert in that field and this, that, and whatever. But I didn't know that there was a field of fermentation that you can get a PhD in. Like, what?
Like part of biochemistry, or what is it?
Well, I haven't seen that. It's at the at Middle Tennessee State University. His name's Dr. Johnson. He is the, I guess he's the program director, maybe even he's definitely program director for fermentation at MTSU. He may be the chair for that portion of the school. I don't know. But anyway, he agreed to come on the show. He's been wanting to come back, but his schedule's a lot like mine. It's very busy. And definitely with a lot of, we're in class one week and the next week we're out for the next 2 weeks and we have to go on Zoom or something like that and teach. And it gets ridiculous trying to do it. So his schedule's been kind of crazy, but I couldn't tell you where he probably told us, but I couldn't tell you where he got his degree at, but they do have a program there for fermentation. And it's exactly what it is. They're the pipeline for Kentucky and Tennessee fermentologists and stuff like that go into these fields. And I'm like, how did I not know this? Like, I did I not research the South before I moved here? I mean, like, how did I not know this?
A few different bachelor programs, but I didn't know that it stretched up to the PhD level already.
He has a PhD in it, and he actually worked in several different fields of fermentation. He was
is it fermentation science? Is that?
It has to be,
because I know a lot of these degrees that are applicable to brewing and distilling are also aimed at like the oil field and a couple other different industries.
And you know what? It could be that, but his chosen path has always been on the side of, actually he was a wine connoisseur. And what's funny is at the very end of the show, it was funny because it was probably an hour and 15-minute long show, if not more, but there was 10 people in there and then him. And we're all just sitting there like not a word is being said by anybody. It's like we're all sitting in a lecture, all right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, this guy is like, he's just talking circles. And so at the very end, I asked him, I said, so what's your favorite bourbon? And he just pulled out a bottle of Woodford Reserve and he goes, I love Woodford Reserve. I think it's just perfectly blend. And I can have one every day and feel comfortable with it. Maybe have one before class. I like this. This is what I like. And I was like, you know what? I dig that.
Yeah.
That's cool, you know? So, but
I respect Woodford. If I didn't pull out some like Jim Beam or Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
Bro, come on.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Jack Daniels. But this show already knows, everybody knows I hate Jack Daniels. But so, I mean, and what's funny is I actually have a meeting coming up with their master distiller. And I'm like, you guys realize it's very similar to what we're doing right here. All right. Yeah. Except it's going to be in person. They're going to be sitting beside me at Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you guys realize before I come down there, I loathe all of your products. Like, I don't think.
Oh man.
I don't. The only product I like is Sinatra. And I don't think it's worth $50. And you know how much it costs.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I just don't like them. I don't like their mash bill and all that. But I'm very interested. Yeah, but I'm definitely interested in the process they take, the distillation process.
Yeah.
And speaking to their crew and stuff like that. And maybe grow. It sucks that you live in Tennessee and hate the number one selling bourbon here, you know, and that's the other thing too. It's controversial with the puffery. Is it bourbon or not? It's bourbon. It's absolutely bourbon, but they don't want that. They want to be called Tennessee whiskey because it's different, you know. And so it's all puffery. But yeah. So back to you and not me. But
that's gonna be a fun episode to watch, by the way.
Yeah.
Especially if they try to give you samples and just you like, nah, I'm good.
No, I'll take I would never do that. I would. Trust me, I've had Fossil Creek. If I'll have Fossil Creek, I'll have Jack Daniels.
Oh man!
If you've never had that, you need to taste like earthworms, like night crawlers. That's exactly the way. So you know, Mark, one of the guys on the show from Arizona.
Yeah.
All right, so everybody on the show is pretty super cool. We're sending each other bottles and and samples all the time, cigars and all this stuff. That's how it's just fun. It's what we enjoy doing.
Right.
And so he sent, very awesome of him to send a bunch of samples to all of us and this, that, and whatever. And this one thing of samples, he sent 4 little bottles, and lined up. And the last one I tried was Fossil Creek. I've I literally went and washed my mouth out with hydrogen peroxide right afterwards.
Good grief.
Dude, I'm not lying to you. It was horrible. It was like, it honestly was like someone poured water and maybe a little bit of rubbing alcohol or something like that into like the thing that they put night crawlers in, swished it up a little bit and said, here, take a shot. That's what it tastes like. So I was like, oh my God, it's horrible. So they will never invite me to their place if they've watched these shows, and I wouldn't have any of their samples. But I love to try stuff. I definitely want to get out to your place at some point.
Yes,
when things open up, of course. But so tell me about this podcast. Now, what's your topics? Let's talk about that. Like, what's the big things you want to discuss on there?
So,
and make sure to invite me.
Oh, definitely. Well, contrary to what most people would think, since I own a distillery and a couple other things, the main topics that we want to focus on are current events, sports, politics, and then, of course, whiskey. I mean, we will talk whiskey and the ins and outs of some really cool stuff, but it's really going to be every week we'll have its own topic, but I'm sure in the shows, like, we'll kind of deviate. But I really want it to be an experiential type podcast where we're not just talking about a single item. I want to be free flowing, whatever comes up. I mean, I've already been lectured by like my director of sales and my dad, and they're like, don't isolate people on, because remember, you still own these companies. So I'm like, I get it, but I do want this to be a platform where we can just have fun and talk about it and bring subject matter experts on. So, because everyone's always like, oh, be careful talking about COVID and the vaccinations. If we talk about that, we'll have someone on the show that is an expert. It's not going to be Mike and Cody spatting off, we know these things. No, it'll be prefaced with, this is my opinion. However, we do have an expert here, and let's talk about it. Let's have an intellectual conversation where everything's not an argument. Debates are okay in the academic world.
Well, first of all, they're encouraged. I will tell you, that was kind of give you a little history lesson. David and I from the show, we had a show called Whiskey and Politics. All right. And I chose David and I and another guy, which is why we have the Mule now right above me.
Yeah.
All right. His name is Whiskey, the Bourbon Field Mule. All right. But we also have a mask. And the reason why we had this one individual that every time he poured a glass, he would do the two fingers, but it'd be like two fingers from the top. All right. Yeah. He'd pour whatever. And he was he's very intellectual. And he was supposed to be our libertarian. I'm conservative. It is what it is. And then David's way the hell over there. All right. Yeah. But we're best. I'm not going to call us best friends because everybody knows that we don't like each other, but that's not true. We're actually best friends. Yeah. All right. But it got ugly because the whole idea was we can have conversations and it be fruitful and we can hear each other's ideas. And hopefully I wish you and Cody luck on that. But when we added that third person in, those ideas no longer could be communicated. All right. And you would have thought definitely having that libertarian there, that definitely having that, but we picked the wrong probably libertarian because he had to be right all the time. Like no matter what, got to be right. And one thing that's really cool about David and I is like David and I could truly be in legislation and write laws together and never agree with each other.
Right.
Because we can at least know what each other's passionate about and we'll hear each other's position. And so I wish you luck with that, and I hope it does work out, but I will not hold my breath if that doesn't. If you go, you know what, we're going to talk about current things, football and whiskey.
Exclude politics.
Yeah, if that happens, 2 months into your little venture, then you know what, that it is what it is, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's cool. I think it's I'll absolutely listen to that because I've got a feeling you and I are probably pretty close to on the same side with a lot of things. And so it'd probably be right down my alley.
Right. Yeah.
And of course I like whiskey too. So let me ask you this. You're a firearms guy.
Oh yeah.
God, I love him. God, you're like a brother. Did we just become best friends?
I got so much room for activity in my office.
I know.
Yeah. So I don't know if I've ever, so when I was Air Force, I started in security forces. The unit I was in was a specific ground combat unit. So I didn't do like the base patrol. We just were an expeditionary force. And then I got recruited over to OSI. So yeah, I've been toting a gun for every day of my government career.
Let me ask you this. Do you have a favorite? I know what my favorite is. My favorite handgun. How about we start there?
Yeah. I would say just because it was the last gun that I carried on duty, the SIG 320 was super comfortable, very reliable, very evenly balanced in my hand. I could always I felt good if I ever had to use it.
I love my SIG 2340. It's solid. But my favorite all-time weapon is 1911. I have a 1911. I love it. It's Kimber makes beautiful firearms, as you know. And then probably my second favorite handgun of all time is I got a 45 Long Colt. And dude, that is so much fun to shoot. Just pleeking around in the backyard, shooting stuff. The bullet comes out at like 900 feet per second. Like you can almost run faster in it. Yeah. Right. It's just a big old piece of lead just flying through the air, Yeah. Like no wonder they shot each other from, 10 feet away, because there is if you were at 40 feet, I can react,
Yeah, right. I can move.
Yeah. It's not like a 1911 or, a 2340 or a 332 or something like any of those. It's not like any of those. It's you could almost see it.
Yeah. Like the old Civil War gun, you see the lead coming at you, like, what the heck?
Yeah. So I love shooting it because, when it hits something, and like definitely if it hits something solid like a rock or piece of steel or something like that, it stays in it. It doesn't shatter. It because it's moving so slow, it just boom and then wraps over it like it's glue. And I'm that's so sexy, love it. That it just looks cool. All right. I'm at that age where I want to play with shit,
Yeah.
I don't get to play with anything else anymore. That's what I want to play with,
Right.
All right. So rifles. What about rifles? Do you have a favorite rifle?
I don't have a favorite brand. Caliber, I would say right now I'm kind of on the 300 Blackout. That's a lot of fun.
Yep.
I mean, of course, before that, 223 is always a fun, especially shooting metal targets. That instant gratification of the ting is so good.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, my buddy owns a armory down here, and he built me a 300 Blackout a while back, and it's just like my new little baby that I've mounted on my wall. It's got its own little space in the closet. So.
Well, over that way, I have a whole room that's nothing but where I'm sorry, I need to preface this differently. Where I used to keep all my firearms, but ever since that boating accident that occurred over the summer, where my whole safe went down to the bottom of the lake. I'm being facetious.
Okay. I got you.
Thank you.
Tracking.
I'm glad you're tracking.
For a second, I was like, a boating accident. What the heck?
Who the hell takes their safe on a boat?
Don't you live in Tennessee?
Yeah. But anyway, we have a lot of lakes here. But anyway, no, I have a Henry Big Boy 44 Magnum. Oh my God. That's instant arousal every time you fire that. It's like, you fire that and you're like, if there ain't a woman around, it's going to be a tree. Somebody's getting fucked. All right. Like it's awesome,
Oh man,
such a great feeling. So, but no, that's oh my God, it's so sexy to shoot. Yeah. But anyway, dude, anything else? Any alibis you got? You want to talk about before we get off tonight? And by the way, thank you again for being on here. This is super honor for me. I enjoy it.
I love cutting up with you.
Yeah, and I do too. I'm telling you, we're best friends.
I'm pretty sure we're cut from the same cloth. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because actually, the reason I'm getting my PhD is because I do want to teach. So I taught a few undergrad level government, I think they would call it American government courses when I was in Georgia.
Right.
And I fell in love with higher education teaching. And I think the pursuit of knowledge is a really fun path. So that's the reason I'm pursuing my PhD is it's a life accomplishment, but it's also, I want to have the ability when I settle down in my entrepreneur life, I want to be able to translate that to students in an organized higher education forum, not just, hey, look at me, I know things, like to actually be a lecturer.
Yep. So let me ask you this. What are you getting it in? I mean, what's your study? What's your field?
It's public policy, and then I'm focusing in national security policy.
Nice. Yeah. I like that public policy. I went to USC for my MPA, which public administration. We did a lot of public policy stuff. So fascinating field. And then of course my doctorate's in education, leadership, and practice. Yeah. So I'm the same way. I got the opportunity to teach a few times. I was an instructor for a while and various military apparatus positions. And I'm like, you know what, I could do this. But then I realized you can't just tell students to go fuck themselves.
Right. Yeah. It's not like the military. Shut up.
I can't do knife hands, you know? Like, can't go.
I think even the military is getting away from the knife hands.
Yeah, that, and I can't say.
Super aggressive.
Can't look at them and go, what's your favorite crayon taste? Because I know you're one of them people, you know? Can't do all that, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I actually got my MPA too. I have 2 masters, and one of them is.
I did too, MBA as well. So
I got an MPA and then a master's in theology.
Ah, nice.
That was
David would love to have a conversation with you then, because he's a different one. Like I told you, he's way over there. I know I'm pointing to my right.
I was about to say,
let's pretend it's on that side.
The other way.
It's just there's a longer distance that way. That's the only reason why I'm pointing that way. So I'll do it this way. He's way over there.
I get where you're coming from.
Mike, I appreciate it, brother. I really do.
Absolutely.
Feel free to reach out to me. I did send you my address. Can you confirm you got it real quick?
I got to move my phone light. Did you Facebook it to me?
I did.
Yes, I got it. Should I say it live so everyone knows where you live? I'm just kidding. Yeah, I got it. Leak your info like all the other celebrities. Then you'll be a celebrity. When your info gets officially leaked, you've made it.
Well, I wish the freaking let me call you about your damn car insurance or extended warranty or whatever the hell it is. I wish they'd stop calling me. I get probably 15 calls a day about that. I feel like a celebrity.
Well, it's because the military is as great as we are at protecting secrets. We can't keep our own personnel files locked up.
PPI is all over the place. But anyway, brother, thank you again, and cheers to you. Even though I poured out my drink, or I didn't pour it out. I poured it out my stomach. So
Broncos cup.
Let me pour. Hold on a second. Let me pour a little bit more. By the way, I'm having a little bit of a Elijah Craig barrel proof tonight. So, what's that?
A, B, or C?
This is B521.
B's good. It's hard to get. C is really prevalent out here in Colorado, but people can't find the B out here. They like that one.
This one's a 118.2 proof. So, cheers to you, brother. Strength. And thank you for being on my show tonight.
What's your name? What? What is your name? Tony! Fuck you, Tony!